Hi guys, welcome back to the channel on what is an absolutely glorious day here in Melbourne. It's late autumn, but it's still so warm. I'm not sure if you can hear in the background if the microphone's picking it up at all. There's all kinds of birds calling, have frogs calling in the pond behind me. It's just beautiful. But the reality is, for wildlife photography, it's rarely this good. Often we're working in conditions that are quite gloomy, dark. We're dealing with fast moving animals that are moving erratically, and all of that necessitates using high shutter speeds with high ISOs, resulting in very noisy images. In the past, that was a huge problem for us photographers. But recently, with advances in technology, there have been huge improvements in post-processing ability, and now we are blessed with all these different programs that can help deal with noisy images. And today I'm going to be exploring two of those programs. I'm going to be comparing how Lightroom deals with noisy images compared to DxO PureRAW 6. Let's head into the computer and see what these two programs are about. Here we are in Lightroom where we have an image of a little kingfisher, and you can see that this was taken at an ISO of 10,000, even when I was using a shutter speed of 1/80th of a second, which should give you some idea of just how dark it was in this forest. So the first thing we'll do is we'll process this image in Lightroom. So we select our image, then we head to the details panel and check the denoise box, which will apply the denoising to the image. Now Lightroom defaults to a value of 50, but you can play around with this depending on how you want the final image to look. And for this example, we'll leave it here. Lightroom will then add the denoise information to the catalog file, and then we can go on with the rest of our edits. Obviously, one of the huge advantages here is that doing this in Lightroom is very easy, it's simple, and there's no faffing about. Once it's finished, you're left with a denoised image. Now to use DxO PureRAW, it's a little bit different. First you have to go to File, then you go down to Plugin Extras, and then Review and Process with DxO PureRAW 6. And this is how things look in DxO. In the middle here, we have our image with a slider that allows us to compare before and after the denoising is applied. And on the right here is our control panel where we can set up the parameters of our edits. If we click on this symbol here, we can choose the output format of the file. With this newest version of PureRAW, we have the option of selecting a compressed file format to reduce the amount of hard drive space we are occupying with these extra DNG files with no loss in image quality. But I'll just leave it as uncompressed at this stage. To head back to our main controls, we click on these little stars, and there we can choose the different denoising methods that we're going to use on our image. In this case, we'll be using Deep Prime XD3, which will give us the best results. Next, we have the luminance level, which in essence is the amount of denoising that we're going to apply. And same as what we did in Lightroom, we'll set this to 50 so we have a fair comparison. You can also apply a range of different optical corrections such as lens sharpness optimization, vignetting, chromatic aberration and lens distortion. But I'm going to leave these as standard so we can compare apples to apples. One last cool feature is that you can also use DxO to automatically detect and remove dust particles, saving you the need to do this manually later on. When you're happy with all the edits, you then click Process Now, and DxO will import the image back into Lightroom as a DNG file. So here we are with both images back in Lightroom for a side-by-side comparison. Now at first glance, both look pretty good, but it's when you zoom in and start looking closely at the image that you can see differences between the two programs. So on the right here, we have our image that was denoised in Lightroom, and obviously on the left here, we have our image that was denoised in DxO. Now, when you look closely at the background, you can see that DxO has done a much better job of removing the noise. And also when you look at the detail around the eyes, there's better detail in the Deep Prime image. And also when you're looking at the feather detail, particularly around the face here, we can see that there's much better detail in the DxO image. Now remember, all the parameters that were used to denoise these images was exactly the same for both images. So I'm just going to show you a couple more examples. This is a photo of a black-crowned pitta taken in the depth of the Bornean jungle. This was taken at an ISO of 10,000, and even though I was taking this during the middle of the day, it was almost like nighttime in there. So I've processed both the same as what we did with the previous image, except this time it's flipped. We have our Lightroom image on the left and our DxO image on the right. And now that we've zoomed in again, we can see that there's a difference in the background noise between the two programs. So to my eye, DxO has done a better job of removing that background noise, but also when we look at the detail, particularly around the eyes, again, DxO has done a better job, and in the feather detail around the face and on the chest, it's much better in DxO. Okay, for our last image, we're going to steer away from birds for once, so no one can accuse me of being a speciesist, and we're going to look at these images of a toque macaque that I took in Sri Lanka. Now these were taken at a fairly moderate ISO of 5,000, but again, it was a very dark forest where these monkeys were. Now at first glance, both images look very similar. In fact, they're almost identical. We can see we have our DxO image on the left and our Lightroom image on the right. But when we zoom right in and have a look particularly at the top of the head, the background here on the DxO image to me looks better, and these little tufts of hair, the detail has been preserved in the DxO image better than the Lightroom image. So if you're choosing between Lightroom AI Denoise and DxO PureRAW, it really comes down to workflow versus ultimate image quality. Lightroom Denoise is all about convenience. It integrates seamlessly into your existing workflow, gives fast previews, and tends to produce more natural looking skin tones. It's a great option for everyday use and moderate noise. The downside is that images can come out a bit softer, and it doesn't match the fine detail recovery or lens specific sharpening that DxO offers, especially in tricky, out of focus areas. DxO PureRAW, on the other hand, is built for maximum quality. It delivers superior noise reduction, especially in high ISO and dark tones, and its optics modules give noticeably better sharpness. It also handles X-trans sensors particularly well. But you pay for that quality with a slower process, extra DNG files, added cost, and a slightly less streamlined workflow. It can also oversmooth if you're not careful. So if you value speed and simplicity, Lightroom is an easy choice. But if you're chasing the best possible image quality, then DxO is simply too hard to beat. Well, after all that, my simple take is that I think that DxO PureRAW 6 offers better image quality. And at the end of the day, I'm a wildlife photographer. So I'm quite happy to spend a little bit more time and money on something that's going to give me a much better end product. What do you guys think? Do you prefer the denoise in Lightroom or DxO? Leave a comment down below. And for those of you that haven't decided but have been thinking about purchasing a DxO product, well then I have a 15% offer for you. Check the link in the description below. Well, that's enough waffle for me. The conditions are far too good today. There's way too many birds out and about. I'm not going to spend any more time here talking. I'm heading off to get some photos. I'll see you back on the channel very soon.